On the street where I lived, there was an abandoned house. It backed up to a small wood that then backed up to our high school. A trail led from the back of the school past the house to my street, and all the kids on my street used it as a shortcut to walk to school. The house had been abandoned before I was born, but I don't know when. My parents said it was abandoned when they built our house on the same street. Most of the neighboring houses were less than 20 years old. It was the original house in the neighborhood. It has always been spooky to walk past, and the older kids all told scary stories about the house to us younger kids when we were little. Now that I'm in high school, I've done the same to kids younger than me, keeping up the tradition of frightening the grade schoolers. On returning home after school, I heard a crackling sound that reminded me of electricity, like when the mad scientist threw the switch to electrify Frankenstein in the movies. The sound came and stopped and started again, like a bad connection in an electrical circuit. I heard it several afternoons, and I became worried that somehow the electricity was connected to the house and it would start a fire. I told this to a classmate at school over lunch, and he suggested that we go to the house after school and investigate. We could be heroes if we saved the neighborhood from fire. After the last bell, we headed to the abandoned house and stood outside for a while listening, but we heard nothing. My friend said, "Are you afraid to go inside?" I said, "Of course not. This isn't me trembling in fear. This is my shaking with excitement." We laughed and we pushed open the old door, which surprisingly opened relatively easily with a loud creaking. We cautiously peered inside the house. It was too dark to see, but we were hit with a strong odor that I can only describe as the smell of dog food. The floor was covered with broken glass and a 3 or 4 foot wide strip in front of the door. We shuffled our shoes through the glass so as not to step on it to avoid making a crunching sound. We had just reached the front hall when we heard a muffled crying upstairs. We were more curious than frightened to find out what the heck was making that sound. Then came the crackling sound of the electric circuit I had heard the last several days coming home from school. The electrical crackling stopped, and a very deep man's voice said, "Eat it." As stupid as it was, we went up to the stairs to a back bedroom where we heard the gruff man's voice again. "Sit." My classmate was ahead of me and he just walked into the bedroom. His mouth was wide open in terror and all I could hear was, "No!" I looked, and to my alarm stood 3 people on their knees. Each had a dog collar around their neck, and a man commanded them with a stun gun. For a split second, no one moved. Then the 3 on their knees shouted, "Help! Run!" The crazy man training them turned and put the taser to my friend's neck, and he dropped to the floor. I fell, scrambled out of the room on hands and knees, and slid down the stairs, jumping through the glass and out the front door. I ran for my life. Bursting into the front door of my own home, I yelled for my mom to call the police. I ran back to the house and silently crawled back up the stairs. I peered into the room from a low position and saw that the man was putting a dog collar on my friend's neck. I didn't think. I just acted and ran to the chamber of horrors and tackled the man, taking him to the floor. As he fell, he dropped the stun gun, which I rolled to and grabbed, raising on my knee and pointing it at him. I could already hear the sirens of the police cruisers on the street. The police rushed in and handcuffed the man. Other officers went to remove the dog collars from the rescued victims. However, 3 had been beaten, shocked, and only fed dog food for weeks. They were unable to stand on their own and too weak to cry. All 3 collapsed to the floor with tears in their eyes, knowing their chilling nightmare was over. Outside, the man was questioned why he did such a thing. He wanted to sell them as pets and ran an obedience school. He was eventually confined to a mental health facility, where he remains today. My friend and the 3 other victims are being treated for trauma and will be under the care of a psychologist for a while. All are expected to fully recover in time.
Good morning, Amelia. Get a move on. You're gonna be late for school. Please, Mom, let me sleep. I'm not feeling well.
Oh dear, this isn't like Amelia at all. She must be really sick. She never complains and hasn't had a sniffle in years. I let her stay in bed, and I'll make an appointment with the doctor if she develops a fever. During this time of COVID-19 pandemic, we have to take extra precautions. I didn't know that the Amelia sick in bed wasn't my daughter. It was an entity disguised as my Amelia. When I left the room in the evening, the vile spirit impersonating my doctor went on nocturnal quests of evil intent. When her father and I went to sleep, she would quietly steal away into the night in search of human flesh. By morning, she was back in her bed. The entire town was haunted by the brutal murders. Flesh ripped from the bones of the victims in the dead of night. The police investigation had no leads to the demonic serial killer. Our once peaceful community was thrown into a frenzy of distrust, even for best friends. No one has any suspicion of my dear Amelia, not even myself. She was just my daughter, a typical high school girl sick in bed. I was concerned about her change in behavior from the happy kid who never complained to the sick, reclusive girl who refused my visits to her room and declined my chicken soup, a favorite of hers. It had been almost a week, and I was finding her behavior more and more bizarre. She yelled at me to leave her alone. She would not share her thoughts or feelings as she usually did with me. She completely stopped eating, no matter what I brought to her. I told her I'd make an appointment with the doctor, and she said she was fine. She just needs to rest and be left alone. My son was very adamant that I take Amelia to a psychiatrist. Then, he said he had seen Amelia in the windows of the abandoned house down the street. One afternoon, I went to Amelia's room to check on her. It just didn't feel like it was her, even though I was looking directly at her. I said, "You know, Amelia, your father loves you very much, and he wants you to get better soon. He asked if you'd like him to dig out your old doll Clara from the attic. He remembers that when he gave Clara, you could not sleep well without her. Do you remember that?" Amelia said, "Yes, I remember playing with her all the time. She was my favorite doll." I was horrified. This wasn't Amelia. She never had a doll named Clara. She hated dolls and never played with them. I quietly left the room and locked the door with the skeleton key. In the garage, I got the can of gasoline used for the lawnmower, took it back upstairs, and poured it under the door. Amelia, the imposter, was screaming, "Mom, what are you doing? I'm your daughter! Mom, please open the door!" I knew it could not be my daughter Amelia because Amelia was held captive in the abandoned house. As the fire engulfed the room, I ran to the abandoned house to rescue my daughter. When I broke down the door, I found Amelia weak and malnourished. I could barely recognize her. She had been imprisoned in this filthy, abandoned house for a week with nothing to eat and surviving on water that she could collect from outside a boarded second-floor window during a rainy night. Several days after the fire investigator found no evidence of anyone in the house when it burned. Amelia was gaining strength and was the same happy girl before the phantom stole her identity. An old neighbor told the history of the abandoned house. It had been decades since anyone had lived in the house, perhaps even 100 years. The former owner was a woman who spent her entire life living in the house alone. It was a big house, big enough for a very large family. There were many rumors at the time she was living there. The most popular story concerning her heinous nocturnal behavior. The spinster was believed to have prowled the street of the town after the sun had set and gorged herself on the flesh of anyone who dared to walk about after dark. She would slaughter anyone to appease her thirst for blood and taste for human flesh. It was a dark and foreboding time in the town. The local police scrutinized each lead to no avail. They had never undertaken an investigation into such savagely dismembered bodies. Many of the victims with their vital organs ripped from their bodies. The unmistakable evidence of teeth marks made by a human. After weeks of terror, the community was at a breaking point. Then a lead came. A paperboy delivering his round of newspapers came across a woman feasting on a child. The police rushed to the house and captured the woman, still caked in blood and dripping with human flesh. Her mouth was drenched in red. A court was convened, and the townspeople unanimously decided that the woman would be sealed in her own home for eternity. The windows and doors were boarded so there would be no escape. No one wanted a public execution, and the town jail couldn't handle such an evil person. They believed she would die of starvation, and everyone felt that would be the appropriate justice for her crimes. No one ever suspected the evil spirit that haunted the long-abandoned house would escape its captivity. Can fire destroy the demon? Or did the flames simply release it stronger back into the world? My wife and I purchased a house at auction in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. It had been abandoned for many years and required significant repair. The bones of the house were good, and it still retained some of its original charms. It was going to be a total rehab. We arranged for a crew to haul off the kitchen interior and a pile of junk from the basement. They hauled off rusted washing machines and broken appliances from the basement. The previous owners had left a deep freezer buried beneath old carpet that should have been thrown away decades ago. It was totally gross. It was filled with all kinds of animal carcasses that were stripped of the meat and bone fragments with fur still attached. There was a bucket that looked like it was filled initially with blood that had dried and cracked over the years. It gave us the willies. We worked with the crew over the summer, making the place livable in 4 months. In late October, we moved in. The shower worked and the toilet flushed. What more did we need? On our first night, my brother Ed came with his wife to see the place and to stay with us for the weekend. Gatlinburg is a great town in October when the summer tourists are not so thick. We were unboxing decorations for Halloween, and I was taking the empty boxes to the basement for storage when something strange caught my eye tucked up against a floor joist. I got a stepladder, reached up, and pulled out a beaten-up old game box. I took it upstairs to the kitchen table, and we opened it as a group. Inside was an Ouija board that looked to be from around 1900. I can't say for sure, but it was definitely old. My wife placed it on our newly renovated corner hutch as decoration. Around midnight, we all went to bed on the second floor. We had beds in 2 of the 4 bedrooms, so it was comfortable. My wife and I had fallen asleep when we were awoken by running and jumping in the hallway. We both got up and went to our bedroom door to look in the hall, and my brother Ed and his wife were standing at their bedroom door doing the same. There was no one there. The 4 of us checked each room and headed downstairs thinking safety in numbers. We checked each room, and the house was empty, except for us. Then my brother said, "It's got to be the Ouija board." And he took it from the hutch and returned it to the basement. We returned to our beds, and all was silent in the house for the rest of the night. As the days passed, the hauntings became more pronounced. At first, it was just a presence you felt when you entered a room. Not a kind, warm feeling, but a dark and demonic air. At night, doors would open or shut on their own. While reading in the living room, the lights would flicker. It was all new wiring, and we had the electrician double-check that all was up to code. In a few weeks, I began to see a shadow moving about like a light breeze, but it had a very demonic presence to it. It got right inside my head, and I thought I was losing my mind hearing voices. The cat and dog we adopted died of unknown causes after being with us for only a few weeks. The entity affected everything. Our cars, which were newer, would not start. The heat pump would quit for no reason. One night, I walked past the open basement door, and we never left it open. The light was off in the basement, but my wife called me from the dark. I knew it wasn't my wife, because I'd seen her just moments before going upstairs. The evil spirit continued to make its presence felt, and we were not sleeping well. During the day, the voices in our heads grew louder and louder, yet we could not understand what they were saying. It was always garbled. After Christmas, we decided we could not take it anymore, and we listed the house for sale and moved back to Dayton, Ohio. The voices and the shadowy figure never bothered us again after we moved out. It's been several years now, and the house is still for sale.